Thanks for coming back. This is Shawassi Gunner. Got two revolvers here on the table. These are both in 22 long rifle, and they're both single action. They're both kind of in the same market share for basically a plinking around the property type of situation, small game, 22 revolver. On the top here we have a Heritage Manufacturing Rough Rider, and on the bottom we have the Ruger Wrangler. Heritage Manufacturing's been around for quite some time, making this similar gun here for a good amount of years. So it has a pretty good track record. I think people know what to expect with them, especially from what you hear over time. The Ruger Wrangler came out probably a year or so ago, and Ruger's got a good track record with revolvers, but this is a new design for them and different materials that they are using. So it remains to be seen, as far as long-term wear and tear. But I guess I'll go into the first thing here is build quality. I'll start with the Ruger here. You have a steel barrel with a cast aluminum, and I believe it's cast. I don't think it's forged because Ruger does a lot of investment casting. They're pretty well known for it, so it makes sense. But could be wrong, could be forged, but it's cast aluminum frame here, and then the grip frame itself is a Zamac alloy. So a lot of your high points, the high point slides are made out of Zamac and stuff like that. Fairly used, people call it pot metal, but it's decently strong for what you're looking at. Especially on a 22, this isn't a very high stress round, and this is the lowest stress area on the gun itself. So on the Rough Rider, you have a steel barrel, you have a Zamac frame here, and you have a Zamac frame down low for the grip frame, with a steel cylinder. So that is one important difference there. As far as the cylinder frame here, it's got a little bit different build quality to it. The finish on the Ruger is a Cerakote finish, and it's done pretty nicely. There's no runs or anything like that. Some of the casting marks in the Zamac you can kind of see, like the seam here, a couple little down here. But other than that, it's pretty rock solid in how it's been finished. I don't see anything wrong with it, and I wouldn't complain. So the Rough Rider, on the other hand, this I did pick up new, and I did have some chatter marks here and there in the barrel. The finish is, it's not, the barrel's blued, and so is the cylinder, but whatever they put on this Zamac is really kind of cheap and chips off. You can kind of see through, not see through, but you can kind of see where it's just kind of wearing easily. But again, it's price point. So, but yeah, that's just something to note. And I believe they use a little bit more plastic and stuff as far as components in here as well. Next thing going on is the options that are offered. So Heritage Manufacturing offers this, the Rough Rider, in a lot of different types of variations. So this is a 6-inch barrel, but you can get it in up to a 16-inch, down to I believe a 3.5 they have. You can get a different grip frame here. You can get a bird's head style grip. And that's basically it, besides the fact that you can shoot 22 mag out of this with the correct cylinder. So I haven't picked up the 22 mag cylinder, but it's definitely on my to-do list. So just to have that option. The Rough Rider is basically what you see is what you get. You don't have a lot of options. You have basically just a Cerakote color option. And I believe at the time of this video, there is a new distributor exclusive that offers a special cobalt coloring for the Cerakote, as well as wood grip panels. So something to note. Ruger's doing a little bit there, here and there, trying to, I think, expand it. I think over time, Ruger does a lot of distributor exclusives, so we might see some special options out there that we could, you know, pick up from it. But yeah, so next thing, probably the biggest thing there's a couple key differences. I'll go through them real quick, kind of one at a time. I'll compare back and forth. So the Ruger trigger, as you can see, it's a very wide trigger, very smooth and flat. And the Rough Rider has kind of a beveled, thinner edge. There's kind of a seam in the middle. You can feel that ridge. I think hands down that the Ruger has a better feeling trigger itself. As far as pull, I'm kind of torn on that. I definitely need to shoot the Wrangler quite a bit more. I need to shoot both of them quite a bit more to really form an opinion on that. But I think that the Ruger trigger feels quite a bit better. The next thing I'd like to know is safety-wise. So as you can see, the Ruger has a transfer bar safety. It's not intrusive. It's kind of just secret. It does change, you know, kind of how the operation of how the hammer looks a little bit. But by and large, it looks very smooth and well finished. On the Rough Rider, you have a hammer block safety. So you can see here, it's on safe right now. You would flip it down and you'd be ready to fire. So when you flip it up, you see a little hammer bar here. It blocks it from being able to fully depress on the firing pin. It does say on the barrel though, if you can note, keep empty chamber under the hammer. So I guess, don't know how well the safety is supposed to work or if that's just kind of legal jargon. That's a huge difference between the two, because I will say the Wrangler is a lot cleaner looking. So, I mean, there's ways that the Rough Rider looks more, you know, they're both clones of, you know, the single action army, but in ways, but they're kind of their own thing as well. The next thing I'd like to know is the loading gates. So on the Ruger, you have a fatter loading gate, and it's actually very firm, very, very tight. And that's actually, I think, partly because there's a camming action down here to release the cylinder stop here. So when you pull this down, you're able to free spin the cylinder to load as well as eject. The Ruger ejection rod is a little bit beefier, I think. Got a nice point to it to help get through into the holes. On the Rough Rider, it's a little bit thinner, a little looser fitting. Comes out really easy. And then the ejection rod. Yep. Well, to be able to load it and unload it, you got to do half cock, and you got to rotate it around so it clicks. But the ejection rod is a little thinner, I think, a little less beefy. I think Ruger wins on that part. I guess personal preference would outweigh here as far as what loading method you prefer. The Rough Rider is kind of a more traditional style, and the Ruger's tends to be more of its own thing. My next thing to note is the sights. So these are very rudimentary sights. You just have a blade up front. But in the back on the Rough Rider, if it'll focus, as you can see, there's just a notch with a gutter that goes all the way through the top of the frame, catching you with the blade up front. Works just fine. On the Rough Rider, as you can see, what I think is a very good feature is they really hollowed this out here and made a nice cup that really helps you pick up that front sight. Gives it, the way the light reflects off of it, really a lot better sight picture in my opinion. So that's one thing plus for the Ruger. As far as that, really, the only other differences are, rudimentary. So let's get down to, what I would prefer. and what I think about, you know, there's just a general consensus of them themselves. You know, I guess. All right, I guess I'll mention this before I get into that. So on the barrel, on the Rough Rider, you kind of have a little bit of a crowning action on it. Oh. Whereas the Rough Rider is flat and smooth right out to the end. There's a little crown in there, but definitely kind of just a different way to do it. But and I guess the only thing you won't be able to tell, I guess last thing I'll note, I don't think you'll be able to see, I believe that the cylinder gap here on the Ruger is just a little looser than what you'd have on the Rough Rider. I don't know if it'd ever show up on camera. It's pretty tight on the Rough Rider. It's going to be very, very subtle. But as you can see a decent sized gap in the Rough Rider. Really, really close. So, how much that really is going to affect performance out of it, I can't say. But just another thing to know in the comparisons between the two. So, I guess the biggest thing to me is with the Rough Rider, you are getting a lot, potentially, based on what kind of option you get, but you're getting a lot cheaper revolver to be able to plank, hunt with, do little things, shoot some varmints and stuff around your property. Price point alone, I think really gives you some good advantages with the Rough Rider. Probably the biggest advantage, I would say, is the option for 22 mag. That being said, if you were to only have one, I would say probably go with the Rough Rider. Now, onto the Ruger here, it has a lot of creature comforts, and is that worth, you know, depending on where, you know, $50 to $80 more? I also think yes. For the way the trigger feels, for a little bit better build quality on certain components, you know, I will say Ruger probably has a lot better potential, you know, as far as dealing with manufacturer, for warranty work or whatever. You're gonna probably have a better time. So it's not really a huge difference in price point there, but really I think it's gonna have to come down to what you're really wanting to do with it. If you're kind of a die-hard Ruger fan, I mean there is a lot of them. If you like their double actions and stuff, you'd be very well suited to just get this to add to your collection. The Rough Rider, if you're just looking for something to kind of plink with and have fun, I mean, 120 something bucks, not a bad option. Like I said, especially that 22 mag option. The Ruger, really, I think to stay competitive, they're gonna eventually have to offer something like that in the Wrangler series. But that being said, if you want to spend more money, you can get the Bearcat line, you can get the single 6 line, and actually have quite a few more creature comforts. But that being said, I mean, these are obviously going at each other. Here's the thing though, I picked up both of them mainly because I really like shooting 22 single action revolvers. They're really fun, especially right now with how ammo's hard to get. I reload, but it's hard to get components for everything. So if you run out of primers, you're screwed. So I had little surplus of 22 ammo, so I was able to, you know, I justified getting it. So that's cool. I think that they both suit you well, depending, you know, what you'd want out of it. But I don't think you'd be hard pressed really on either one. If you're going from kind of a more authentic feeling with the cocking, I'd say you probably want the Rough Rider as well. If you're wanting probably what would work out to be a pretty nice, you know, sidearm to just have if you're out working in the yard, maybe a woodchuck pops up. I think that I might actually prefer the Wrangler over that. with the caveat of the fact that I'm kind of screwed on the 22 mag, which would be a nice option sometimes. But I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens in the future. I have high hopes that maybe Ruger will offer some distributor exclusives that would really kind of add to the line. I don't think it's just like Ruger piecemealed this together just to throw it out there, but I think they saw that, you know, cheap guns do sell, and they threw something out there that they could make that they thought was, you know, decent quality, and I think it is. So a Rough Rider has kind of been a mainstay. You really can't go wrong with it at all. They're both great little revolvers and a lot of fun to shoot. So yeah, I guess if it was, it's up to you really, on what you'd want. But price point and the 22 mag option, I definitely think hands down that the Rough Rider is probably a better option for you. But like I said, application of what you're using it for can have a lot to play. So, all right. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just write in the comments below. I can figure out anything that you need on these, and try to get you an answer as soon as I can. So, alrighty. Thanks for watching, and I'll check with you soon.